With the advent of the skip intro button, it would seem that theme songs are a thing of the past. But are they really? Sure, we have the option to skip the intro, but everyone has at least one show where they choose not to. Why is that? We've been watching Shameless for 5 hours straight and have seen Fiona not wash her hands enough time to get salmonella 3 times over. But once again, we find ourselves in the Gallagher's bathroom. While the factors that affect the quality of a theme song are ostensibly innumerable and unquantifiable, I believe that I have both enumerated and quantified them. There are 4, and they are as follows: the hook, temporal efficiency, expositional applicability, and tonal establishment. The hook is more than the thing that held the surprisingly appetizing cheese in that one episode of SpongeBob. It's also a convention used in any number of different types of media. Broken down, it's something at the very start of a song, movie, show, or porno that catches the audience attention and hopefully keeps it for the duration of the work. It gets the audience on the hook, if you will. A perfect theme song obviously needs a perfect hook. Something that lets the audience know from the very first measure what show they're watching. The audience should hear these opening notes and immediately think, hell yeah, this show is on. I think that no sitcom theme song better encapsulates this than The Office. The piano notes hit and we see shots of Scranton, PA and immediately think, hell yeah, Jim's gonna look at the camera a bunch. As the theme song progresses, the rest of the instruments kick in and we're given a cursory overview of the cast of whichever season we currently find ourselves. This theme song honestly really does a lot in not a lot of time, but what really got our attention and kept it was the piano screaming at us, hey, idiot, The Office is on. Back in the days before streaming, there were things like commercials and programming blocks to consider. Shows had to fit snugly in their time slots and allocate adequate time for commercials. As such, having a theme song that could be chopped up in editing to give any given episode marginally more or less runtime was invaluable in this pre-streaming era of television. Flash forward to the streaming era in which we find ourselves today, and temporal efficiency is still critical. If a given streaming service does still run ads, those ads could theoretically be placed anywhere in the episode. But the judicious use of time allocated to the theme song is just as relevant. Not as an offering of supplication to our advertising overlords, so much as a bent knee to the viewer's diminishing attention span. Be it because of the time constraints of traditional television or the attention constraints of streaming, it is important for the theme song to play out with alacrity. I would make the case that the opening of How I Met Your Mother is the best example of this aspect of theme song perfection. This theme accomplishes very little in the way of exposition or establishment of tone, with it performing a bit better in the latter category than the former. The only exposition that we really get is that there are some characters and they like to hang out at a bar. Tonally, the bouncy number is semi-consistent with the rest of the show, but not any more or less than any other song would be. Well, more or less any other song. The hook is solid enough, but really doesn't compare to other theme song hooks. That isn't to say that it's bad, but just that it's relatively unremarkable in this regard. What the How I Met Your Mother theme song does better than most others is use its time efficiently. Segments can be added or subtracted without bettering or worsening the totality of the sequence. It is, after all, just a series of pictures. 1 or 2 would suffice to show the full cast, but more can be added if the script for an episode was a little short. Conversely, all of the pictures could be a shoot if the episode is running long, much to the same effect. Furthermore, even if it is at its maximum runtime, this theme is relatively short and respectful of the audience's time, which is always nice. An honorable mention for this category is Scrubs. Most of the points made about the modular nature of the segment and overall brevity can to one degree or another be applied to this theme as well. But I just feel like How I Met Your Mother barely ekes ahead when it comes to these factors. Save for expositional applicability, tonal establishment is the most important element in any good theme song. After all, the little ditty at the start of the show is meant to get the audience in the mood for what they're about to watch. Meant to establish the tone, if you will. All of the shows mentioned, and most of the ones not mentioned, accomplish this to one degree or another. The Office theme lets us know that we're in for a lighthearted comedy with a touch of indie music energy. The How I Met Your Mother theme lets us know much the same thing, but with less indie energy and a bit more nostalgia and a hint of emotional depth. But neither of these shows are exemplary of this particular facet. This honor belongs to Malcolm in the Middle. Whereas most other sitcoms at least dabble in other metrics of perfection, Malcolm in the Middle more or less eschews these other elements and opts instead to go full bore into setting the tone. The hook is nothing to write home about, and while this theme can and has been edited down to more efficiently allot for the runtime of any given episode, doing so vastly undercuts the impact of the theme. To accomplish what it intends to accomplish, this theme must play out in its entirety, or at least in its majority, making it woefully time inefficient. All of that being said, there's a reason why I would qualify this theme song as maybe the best of all time, and that reason can be summed up in 2 words: nostalgia incarnate. Malcolm in the Middle is nothing if not a time capsule for the late 90s and early 2000s, and the theme song is no different. Boss of Me by They Might Be Giants perfectly encapsulates the sort of ska, sort of punk, sort of pop type music that those just askew of mainstream sensibilities flocked towards in that era. There are shots of the cast and credits are displayed on screen, but this is more or less as far as any exposition goes. Instead, we get scenes from anime. Apparently, it's a 1998 anime called Nazca, or Dimensional Movement of Nazca for you weebs out there. A wrestling match. Apparently, it's Bret Hart doing a sharpshooter for all you wrestling weebs out there. And this big-ass turtle. Apparently, it's from 1 million years BC for all you turtle weebs out there. None of these scenes are even remotely relevant to the plot, but they all simply ooze the motif of the show. An honorable mention in this category is Community. Much like Malcolm in the Middle, the Community theme song and title sequence has very little to do with the rest of the show, but rather primarily serves in setting the mood. However, while this song is catchy enough, it really doesn't capture the tone of the show as well as it could. This song and opening sequence are quite good, don't get me wrong, but just because they are enjoyable does not mean that they are tonally consistent with the show that will follow. Expositional capability is the facet of a theme that is weighed most heavily when assessing the quality of said theme. This is doubly true when it comes to sitcoms, but still holds up with some degree of truth when it comes to other genres. The reason this quality is so important is because every episode of a show could potentially be someone's first experience with the show. With the advent of streaming, this is becoming less and less the case as binge watching rises in popularity, but even still, there is something to be said about having the ability to jump into any random episode of a show and understand, at least vaguely, what's going on. That being said, it's usually not feasible to give a detailed or even broad account of the nuanced characterization and story beats of an entire show while still managing to have a unique story told every time. This is where exposition in the theme song can do a lot of the heavy lifting. By establishing at least the broad strokes of the characters and setting up front, the rest of the runtime can be dedicated to the plot without wholly alienating new potential viewers. The winner in this category is by far The Simpsons. Within this opening is contained almost all the exposition that the show requires. Bart is a troublemaker, Homer works at a nuclear power plant poorly, Marge is a stay-at-home mom, Maggie is a baby, Lisa is a savant, and so on. Furthermore, the song sequence combination also illustrates the setting in which the show is taking place. We get the town of Springfield, we get the school, we get Moe's, and finally we get the house in which the titular characters reside. Without a single word being spoken, the audience is given all of the information needed to get right into the episode regardless of past viewing experience. Having illustrated the various aspects of the perfect sitcom theme song, there is but one question remaining. Is there a perfect sitcom theme? Many shows do many things well, but to become the apex predator of primetime, one must be the best of the best. One must not only achieve perfection along one metric, but across all of them. Is such a thing even possible? I would posit that it is. And I will name the sitcom that accomplished this, thereby becoming the pinnacle of sitcom theme songs after this dramatic pause. That's right, the best theme song of all time is the opening to The Simpsons. A bold claim to be sure, but a claim that can be bolstered by applying this sitcom to the rubric that I have laid out previously. The hook of The Simpsons accomplishes perfectly everything that a hook is meant to accomplish. It is a catchy measure of music that lets the audience know immediately what show they are watching. It does so flat out by saying the name of the show. There is no better way of letting the audience know that they are watching The Simpsons than having a choir sing the title of the show and plastering the logo across almost the entirety of the screen. The Simpsons theme is long. There are no two ways about it. That being said, it uses its significant time allotment quite well. There isn't a wasted frame as the audiences move from character to character across the town of Springfield. Furthermore, the theme can be chopped up as necessary for episode runtime. Doing so does detract a bit from the overall experience, but that overall experience is different from one episode to the next as there are various changes made in the nuances of the sequence, such as the writing on the chalkboard and the couch gag at the end. I would make the case that this more than makes up for any detriment accrued by not letting the theme play out in its entirety. The Danny Elfman score perfectly encapsulates the tone of The Simpsons, and to argue to the contrary would be lunacy. The bouncy jaunt plays as various characters go about their various tasks. But bouncy as the song is, it is still a Danny Elfman number and has a twinge of the bizarre about it. A hint of zaniness bubbling slightly below the surface. And that is nothing if not applicable to the show itself. The Simpsons are meant to represent the average American family, but as a parody, with wild and zany antics in store as soon as one delves even just a little bit deeper. In regards to expositional capability, I literally just went over that. If you didn't catch it, go back in the video and give me the extra watch time. It is for those reasons that I would make the claim that The Simpsons has the best theme song and title sequence in all of sitcomdom. This is not merely my opinion. This is objective truth as evaluated across several metrics. Therefore, if you disagree with me, you are, in fact, wrong.